You don't belong in this seat. Move to economy, or I'll have security drag you out. Jessica Langford's voice sliced through the quiet luxury of the first-class cabin. Her words sharp enough to make every passenger freeze mid-breath. Cameras rose instantly. Smartphones hovered above aisle seats, recording before anyone fully understood what was happening. Before we dive in, tell us where you're watching from so we know how far this story is reaching. Subscribe to the channel and don't forget to like this video so more people can see stories like this. Dr. Elena Harper didn't flinch. At 45, the founder and CEO of Harper Airways had been through storms far worse than a power-hungry flight attendant. But today, she wasn't traveling as the billionaire mogul who owned the very jet she was sitting on. Today, she was incognito, dressed simply in a cream blouse, navy blazer, and soft curls tucked behind her ears. Seat 1A wasn't just a ticketed spot. It was part of her secret inspection plan, a routine audit she conducted every quarter to see how her employees treated passengers when they didn't know who she was. Jessica Langford, the 32-year-old flight attendant assigned to first class, had no idea she was speaking to the woman signing her paychecks. She also didn't know her meltdown was being captured from multiple angles by two first-class passengers: Alex Rivera, a tech mogul with 10 million followers, and Sophia Grant, an actress with a reputation for viral posts. Within seconds, Sophia's hand was already on her phone, instinctively hitting record. "Ma'am, I'm going to need to see your boarding pass." Jessica snapped again, her voice trembling, not from fear, but from frustration she had been nursing long before Elena boarded. Her cheeks flushed red as she crossed her arms, tapping her heel against the polished floor. Elena raised her gaze slowly, sliding her phone into her lap. "Is there a problem?" Her voice was steady, warm even, but carried the kind of authority that silenced boardrooms. Jessica leaned in, close enough for Elena to smell the faint trace of vodka mixed with mint. "The problem," Jessica hissed, "is that people like you think you can just buy your way into spaces you don't belong. Platinum elite seats are reserved for paying customers. The words people like you hung in the air like smoke." A murmur rippled through the cabin. Alex Rivera's brow furrowed as his fingers flew across his laptop, already searching Harper Airways' passenger manifest. Sophia, holding her phone steady, widened her eyes. She sensed something bigger than a seating dispute was about to explode. Elena inhaled deeply, tapping the edge of her boarding pass against her thigh. "I assure you," she said softly, "I belong exactly where I'm sitting." She reached into her tote and retrieved her Amex Centurion black card. Setting it gently on the armrest, gasps fluttered across row 1. Jessica's lip curled, her envy surfacing like oil on water. "Anyone can fake these," she spat, ignoring the polished metal and engraved name. Her eyes darted toward Elena's phone, where an open document displayed Harper Airways' pending $650 million aircraft deal. Jessica assumed favoritism, whispers of nepotism, and imagined corruption swirling like storm clouds in her mind. What Jessica didn't realize was that Elena Harper had fought her way here, orphaned at 18, homeless by 22, surviving years of racial bias and systemic discrimination before winning a $2,000 lawsuit that became seed money for Harper Airways. But today wasn't about the past. Today was about the moment Jessica crossed a line she couldn't return from. "I'm going to give you 3 seconds to move," Jessica said, counting under her breath. 1, 2. "Doctor." A voice interrupted her. "Excuse me," Alex Rivera said firmly, rising halfway from his seat, his phone angled discreetly. "She's in the right seat." "I just checked the manifest." Jessica spun on him, her cheeks now flushed scarlet. "Stay out of this, sir, or you'll be removed too." Sophia's camera caught every second, her live stream climbing to 2,000 viewers in less than a minute. Elena's phone buzzed softly, A notification from her assistant. Board approved the merger unanimously. She placed the phone back in her lap without looking up. "Miss Langford," Elena said calmly, "I'll overlook your tone, but I won't be moving." That was the breaking point. Jessica's breathing quickened, the alcohol on her breath unmistakable now, her knuckles white around the boarding manifest. "I knew it," she snapped. "You people think you can bend rules, walk in here like you own the place." Her words stopped abruptly as her palm cracked across Elena's face. The sound echoed through the cabin, a sharp, violent punctuation that made the room go silent. Elena's head jerked slightly, her lips splitting just enough for a small bead of blood to surface. Gasps erupted. Someone screamed softly near seat 2C. Alex cursed under his breath. Standing fully now, his phone still rolling, Sophia whispered, "Oh my God." As her live stream passed 10,000 viewers in real time, Elena didn't react, didn't even raise a hand to her face. She simply blinked once, exhaled slowly, and whispered, "You've just made the worst mistake of your career." Jessica's chest heaved, her shoulders trembling, adrenaline masking her own shock. But it was too late. 3 rows behind them, Air Marshal Derek Vance quietly unbuckled his belt, his badge glinting faintly under cabin lights. And with that, the next 10 minutes would change the aviation industry forever. "Sit down. Now." Jessica Langford's voice cracked like thunder, sharp enough to make 3 passengers in row 2 flinch. Her cheeks were flushed crimson, her breath unsteady, and the faint scent of vodka lingered in the air. The silence in the first-class cabin was deafening, broken only by the low hum of the Boeing 787's engines. Alex Rivera, still standing near his seat, glanced at Sophia Grant, whose live stream had already crossed 20,000 viewers. "Jessica, stop this." Brian Keller, the head flight attendant, pleaded as he rushed forward from the galley, his polished shoes clicking against the aisle floor. "Please, lower your voice. You're making this worse." Jessica spun around, her blonde bun coming slightly undone as strands of hair escaped to frame her sweating face. "Stay out of this." "Brian," she snapped, "this woman is sitting in a Platinum Elite seat without authorization. I checked the system. She doesn't belong here." Elena Harper, seated calmly in 1A, dabbed the blood on her lip with a silk handkerchief. Her breathing was steady, her composure unbroken. She looked directly at Jessica, her voice low but powerful. "I've told you once, and I won't say it again. I belong exactly where I'm sitting." Jessica's nostrils flared. Her mind was spiraling, tangled between jealousy, exhaustion, and the bitter taste of envy she had carried for years. In her head, she replayed every decision she regretted. The failed marriage to a co-pilot who left her for a younger attendant. The secret abortion she never forgave herself for. And the night's drowning guilt in miniature vodka bottles she stole from the galley. She needed control. But right now, control was slipping through her fingers like sand. "People like you," Jessica sneered, her words cutting like glass. "Think rules don't apply. You think money buys you respect." Elena raised an eyebrow, silent. That silence enraged Jessica even more. "I said move!" she barked, her voice echoing through the cabin loud enough for passengers in business class to glance up. Alex Rivera held his phone higher now, angling it perfectly. "This is going to blow up," he muttered under his breath. Sophia, still live streaming, whispered into her mic, "This woman's insane. I can't believe this is happening on Harper Airways." At that moment, Elena slid her Amex Centurion black card back into her tote bag, folded the handkerchief neatly, and looked Jessica directly in the eyes. Her voice was calm but layered with steel. "Miss Langford, I need you to listen to me very carefully. You're dangerously close to losing more than your temper." Jessica scoffed and crossed her arms tightly. "You think you can threaten me?" She turned toward Brian, expecting him to back her up, but Brian hesitated, his jaw clenched, his voice trembling. Jessica, she's right. You're out of line. Take a step back. I'm out of line? Jessica shouted, her voice cracking. I've been busting my back on these flights for 8 years while management plays favorites and hands promotions to whoever checks their diversity quota. I know exactly what's going on here. Elena blinked slowly, letting the venomous words settle in the cabin like smoke. Then, with quiet precision, she spoke. Check the manifest again. Jessica's trembling fingers snatched the tablet from Brian, scrolling through the passenger list aggressively. Her eyes darted down the rows until she froze. Her mouth parted slightly as she read, Harper, Dr. Elena, Seat 1A, VIP flag. Jessica's throat went dry, but pride forced her voice steady. That doesn't mean anything. Anyone can put fake names in the system. Gasps rippled through the cabin. Sophia's live stream surged past 30,000 viewers. Alex whispered. She's done. Completely done. Elena leaned back into her seat, folding her hands neatly on her lap. Miss Langford, she said softly, do you know who I am? Jessica laughed bitterly, her voice trembling as she spat out. I don't care who you are, you're just another entitled passenger trying to cheat the system. At that exact moment, Elena's phone buzzed. She tapped the screen once, placing the call on speaker. A crisp voice filled the cabin. Dr. Harper, the board just finalized the $650 million aircraft deal. Congratulations, CEO. Dead silence fell. Alex Rivera's jaw dropped slightly. Sophia mouthed the word CEO into her camera, sending her live stream into chaos. Comments flooded the screen at lightning speed. No way that's the Elena Harper. She owns this airline. Jessica just ended her career on live video. Jessica blinked, disoriented, her legs stiffening beneath her as she slowly stepped back. But her pride wouldn't let her apologize. Instead, she whispered hoarsely, I didn't know. Elena tilted her head slightly, her calmness unnerving. Now you do. That was when Brian stepped forward, lowering his voice to a whisper only Jessica could hear. Jess, sit down. Air Marshal's watching. Jessica's head snapped toward the third row, where Air Marshal Derek Vance was seated quietly, his badge glinting faintly under the cabin lights. He hadn't moved yet, but his eyes were locked on her every gesture. The air felt heavier now, the entire cabin suspended in a tense silence broken only by the whir of the engines. Sophia's live stream passed 50,000 viewers, Alex typed furiously, sharing the video link to his millions of followers. Jessica's breathing grew erratic. Her hands shook as she pointed at Elena again, though her voice lost its edge. You set me up, she stammered. Elena shook her head gently. No, Jessica, you set yourself up. Brian inhaled deeply, trying to de-escalate before things spiraled further. Jess, go to the galley, cool off. I'll handle first class from here. But Jessica wasn't listening. The alcohol in her system and her pride collided violently as she stepped closer to Elena, her voice trembling but loud enough for the entire cabin to hear. You think you're untouchable? You think sitting up here makes you better than the rest of us? Elena looked up slowly, her voice barely above a whisper, yet every passenger leaned in to hear. No, she said, but striking your CEO will make you unforgettable. The weight of her words landed like a hammer, and in that moment, Jessica realized the gravity of what she had done. Her entire career, her reputation, and her future were crumbling around her at 35,000 feet, and she couldn't take any of it back. Passengers whispered nervously, cameras clicked, and Sophia's live stream soared past 70,000 viewers. Derek Vance, the air marshal, finally rose from his seat, his voice calm but commanding. Miss Langford, he said firmly, you need to sit down. Now. Jessica shook her head, tears threatening to spill as she clutched the boarding manifest tightly. But before she could respond, Elena spoke again, her tone final, steady, and cold. No, Officer Vance. She's not sitting down. The cabin froze. All eyes turned to Elena as she continued. She's getting off this plane. As soon as we land, Jessica's knees buckled slightly, and for the first time, the weight of reality broke through her pride. Passengers turned their cameras fully toward her now, capturing every expression, every tremor, every desperate flicker of denial crossing her face. And somewhere, in the corner of the cabin, Sophia whispered into her mic, "This is about to get historic. Jessica Langford, stand up and place your hands where I can see them." Air Marshal Derek Vance's calm, commanding voice carried through the first-class cabin, slicing through the thick tension like a blade. The cabin fell into complete silence, passengers holding their breath, cameras steady, all recording. Jessica froze, her trembling hands clutching the boarding manifest as though it could shield her from the reality crashing down around her. Her mascara had started to smudge, the sleek bun now fraying, and the faint reek of alcohol on her breath betrayed every ounce of composure she tried to fake. "Wait, this isn't necessary," she stammered, her voice cracking as her eyes darted wildly between Derek and Elena. I was only trying to do my job." Elena Harper, seated calmly in 1A, dabbed the dried blood from her lip with a fresh handkerchief, her expression serene but unyielding. "Your job?" she said softly, her voice carrying an authority that made even the nearest passengers shift uncomfortably. "Your job does not involve assaulting passengers. Miss Langford, especially not your CEO." Jessica flinched at the word, her chest heaving rapidly, her brain struggling to process it. CEO? She whispered hoarsely, almost as if she hoped she'd misheard. Elena looked up at her fully for the first time since the slap, her gaze steady, piercing, and impossibly calm. "Yes, Jessica," she said, her tone unwavering. "I'm Dr. Elena Harper. I own this airline." The words rippled through the cabin like a lightning strike. Audible gasps erupted from every row. Someone in seat 2C whispered, "Oh my God," and Sophia Grant's live stream chat exploded with comments. "No way this is real." She slapped her CEO on camera. Jessica's career is over. Within seconds, the video crossed 100,000 live viewers, climbing faster than the plane itself. Jessica's throat tightened, her breathing jagged, but pride wouldn't let her collapse. Not yet. This is a setup," she croaked, pointing a shaking finger at Elena. "You tricked me!" Elena tilted her head slightly, her expression almost pitying. "I didn't trick you," she said softly, her tone as sharp as polished steel. "You assumed, you profiled, and you crossed a line you can't uncross." Air Marshal Derek stepped closer, pulling out his badge and holding it where Jessica couldn't ignore it. "Miss Langford, this isn't optional," he said, his voice firm but controlled. "Assaulting a passenger at 35,000 feet is a federal offense. Stand up, now." Jessica's knees weakened, but her pride kept her upright, even as tears welled at the corners of her eyes. No, you don't understand," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I've worked 8 years for this airline. 8 years. I gave up everything for this job." Brian Keller, the head flight attendant, stepped forward cautiously, his own face pale and drawn. "Jessica," he said gently, almost pleading, "stop fighting this, please. There are cameras everywhere." And indeed, there were. Nearly every passenger in first class now had their phones raised, recording from multiple angles, capturing Jessica's trembling hands, Derek's steady stance, and Elena's composed silence. The cabin security cameras blinked faintly from the ceiling, ensuring every moment was preserved in perfect clarity. Sophia Grant's live stream jumped past 15,000 viewers, the comments section exploding with disbelief and fury. This airline better fire her immediately. Justice better happen on the spot. Elena Harper is a legend. Alex Rivera, sitting just one seat across, glanced down at his laptop where Harper Airways' stock price had already begun trending on financial boards. He muttered under his breath, "This is about to go nuclear." Elena reached into her tote and pulled out a slim, leather-bound tablet, tapping it with precise calm. A holographic overlay of Harper Airways' employee database appeared on screen, confirming Jessica's profile. Employee ID 63928, 2 prior warnings for tardiness, 3 passenger complaints, and a flagged note from HR citing possible alcohol-related impairment. Elena rotated the screen slowly toward Jessica. "You want to talk about rules?" Elena asked softly, her voice low but resonant enough for every nearby passenger to hear. "You want to accuse me of breaking policies? Then explain to this cabin why your blood alcohol content shows 0.06% on your pre-flight screen." Jessica's pupils dilated. Her lips parted in stunned silence, and whispers erupted around the cabin. Sophia whispered to her phone. "Oh, she came with receipts." Alex Rivera leaned back, arms folded, murmuring, "She's done." Jessica's trembling finally gave way to collapse. Her knees buckled, and she sank into the edge of seat 1B, covering her face with shaking hands. But Elena wasn't finished. Not yet. "You don't know me," Elena said softly, her tone firm but not cruel. "So let me introduce myself properly. I grew up on the south side of Chicago. I've scrubbed floors. I've slept in my car. I've had doors slammed in my face because of my skin color and my name. And still, I built Harper Airways from nothing, not because anyone handed me a seat like this, but because I earned it." Her voice didn't rise, but the quiet power in her words made the cabin lean closer. Holding their breath, Jessica sobbed quietly, her hands trembling as she whispered, I didn't know." Elena's gaze softened, but her voice remained firm. "You didn't want to know. That's the problem." Air Marshal Derek crouched slightly to meet Jessica's downcast eyes. "Miss Langford, please stand. You're under federal custody until we land. With mechanical precision." He withdrew a pair of flex cuffs and secured her wrists gently but firmly behind her back. Gasps rippled through the cabin as Sophia's live stream surged past 2,000 viewers. In the chat, hashtags exploded. Hashtag Justice at 35K. Hashtag Elena Harper. And hashtag Jessica Langford trending within minutes. Brian Keller stepped back, his hands shaking slightly as he whispered, I had no idea." Elena gave him a measured look, her tone neutral but layered with meaning. "I suggest you start paying attention to who you work with." Brian, Jessica, now seated under Derek's supervision, stared blankly at the floor as passengers murmured among themselves. Someone in row 3 whispered, "This is going viral." Someone else replied softly, "It already has." Meanwhile, Elena opened her tablet again, composing a brief message to Patricia Coleman, Harper Airways General Counsel, prepare immediate termination paperwork. Jessica Langford, employee ID 63928, incident on HA101, documented by multiple witnesses and cameras, within 60 seconds. Patricia's reply came through, "Understood. Drafting official release now. Jessica Langford, terminated effective upon landing." Elena read the message silently, then closed the tablet without another word. She didn't need to say anything. The weight of her silence said enough. As the engines roared softly in the background, Captain Lisa Moreno's voice came over the intercom, steady and measured. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're beginning our descent into Los Angeles. Please return to your seats and fasten your belts." But no one was focused on the descent. All eyes remained on Jessica, her cuffed wrists trembling slightly, her once perfect composure shattered under the glow of 1,000 recording phones. Sophia lowered her camera briefly, whispering to Alex, She has no idea what's waiting at LAX. Alex nodded grimly. The FBI's probably already at the gate. And they were right. At that exact moment. FBI agent Carla Ruiz was assembling her team on the ground, reviewing live footage streamed directly from Sophia's account. This was no longer an HR matter. This was federal assault on a CEO aboard a U.S. commercial aircraft. Back in the cabin. Elena closed her eyes briefly, inhaling deeply as if centering herself. Then she opened them, locking her gaze on Jessica one final time. Her voice was soft but firm, unshakable, and final. This isn't just about me. This is about every passenger who's ever been disrespected, dismissed, or degraded. And it ends today. The cabin erupted in quiet applause, cautious but resolute, as Sophia's live stream shattered 25,000 live viewers. In that moment, everyone knew the next chapter would not be about humiliation. It would be about consequences. And for Jessica Langford, those consequences were already closing in at 35,000 feet. The Boeing 787 touched down at LAX with a soft jolt. But inside the first-class cabin, the tension was heavier than the descent itself. Every passenger remained silent, phones still recording, as the reality of what had just unfolded settled over them. Jessica Langford sat rigidly at the edge of seat 1B, wrists bound by the flex cuffs Air Marshal Derek Vance had secured just 20 minutes earlier. Her once flawless bun now undone, mascara streaking faintly down her cheeks. Her breathing was shallow, erratic, the enormity of her actions finally sinking in. The entire cabin was bracing for what came next. Over the intercom, Captain Lisa Moreno's calm voice filled the air. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Los Angeles International Airport. For your safety, please remain seated until we've reached the gate. But there was nothing routine about this landing. At Gate 72B, FBI agent Carla Ruiz stood flanked by two federal officers, scrolling through Sophia Grant's live stream, which had exploded past 400,000 live viewers worldwide. Behind her, Patricia Coleman, Harper Airways General Counsel, waited with a small leather portfolio tucked under her arm, already holding the prepared termination letter as the plane taxied. Sophia whispered into her phone for her growing audience. They're waiting for her. FBI, Harper's lawyers, the media. This is going to be huge. Alex Rivera leaned over from 2A and murmured, Jessica's about to find out what fired on the spot really means. Inside the cabin. Derek crouched next to Jessica, his voice measured but firm. When we arrive, you will remain seated until instructed. Do not resist. The FBI will escort you off the aircraft. Jessica shook her head slowly, her lips trembling. Please, can we just talk? This doesn't have to go this far. Elena Harper, seated calmly in 1A, folded her silk handkerchief neatly on her lap, her expression unreadable but resolute, without turning her head. She replied softly, It already has. The aircraft rolled to a stop. The seatbelt signs chimed off, and almost instantly, the cabin door swung open to reveal a line of uniformed officers waiting on the jet bridge. Passengers craned their necks, whispering nervously as cameras flashed from every angle. Jessica's heart pounded, tears finally spilling as Derek helped her to her feet. Her voice cracked as she whispered, Dr. Harper, please. I didn't mean to. Elena's gaze remained steady, cool, and distant. Intent doesn't erase impact. Jessica, and today, your impact has consequences. FBI agent Carla Ruiz stepped aboard, her dark blazer sharp, her badge clipped visibly to her belt. Miss Langford, she said, her tone clipped and official. Jessica swallowed hard but nodded weakly. Jessica Langford, you are being detained for questioning in connection to an in-flight assault and potential federal violations. Murmurs rippled through the cabin as Sophia's live stream surged past 500,000 viewers in real time. Carla gestured to her officers, who gently took Jessica by each arm and guided her off the plane. Cameras followed every second, capturing the trembling, red-eyed flight attendant as she was escorted down the jet bridge, as Jessica disappeared from view. Elena finally rose from her seat. The hush that fell over the cabin was immediate. She adjusted her cream blouse, smoothed her navy blazer, and reached into her tote to retrieve a slim leather folder. Patricia Coleman stepped forward from the jet bridge, greeting Elena with a respectful nod before handing her a single-page document. "It's ready," Patricia said softly, her voice low enough that only Elena and Derek could hear. Elena glanced at the header. Immediate termination notice. Jessica Langford. Employee ID 63928. She scanned the contents briefly, then signed her name in elegant strokes at the bottom. Patricia slipped the document back into her folder, already preparing to release an official company statement. Meanwhile, Alex Rivera leaned toward Sophia and whispered, "This is history unfolding in real time." Sophia kept her phone steady, murmuring into the live stream. For everyone watching, Harper Airways has officially terminated the flight attendant responsible for the assault, effective immediately. Her chat exploded. "Fired on the spot. Elena Harper is a boss. This is going to change airlines forever." As Elena exited the aircraft, dozens of reporters surged forward beyond the security cordon, microphones raised, flashes erupting like fireworks. "Dr. Harper, do you have a statement?" one shouted. Elena paused briefly, her expression composed, and spoke clearly into the nearest camera. Today was not just about one incident. It's about dignity, safety, and accountability. Harper Airways has a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination and violence. That begins here, and it begins now. Her words carried like a gavel strike. Within minutes, news networks picked up the footage, and Sophia's live stream crossed 75,000 viewers, trending globally under hashtag #JusticeAt35K and hashtag HarperActNow. As Elena was escorted into a waiting black SUV, Patricia slid into the seat beside her, opening a secure tablet. "Jessica's employment has been terminated," she confirmed. "But there's more. We've uncovered 3 prior complaints against her from passengers alleging harassment. Management at Skylight Airlines, one of our subsidiaries, buried the reports to avoid PR fallout." Elena's jaw tightened slightly, her voice low but cutting. "Then Skylight's leadership will answer for that." 2. Patricia nodded. "Michael Langston?" she asked. Elena's reply was immediate. "Fire him. Today." A single message left Patricia's tablet, and within hours, Michael Langston, CEO of Skylight Airlines, would resign amid scandal, facing possible charges for negligence and suppression of internal complaints. Back at Gate 72B, Jessica sat in a small, windowless interview room inside the federal precinct at LAX, her hands now free but trembling uncontrollably. FBI agent Carla Ruiz leaned forward across the metal table, her voice calm but firm. "Jessica, this isn't just about one slap," she explained. "You were impaired on duty, in violation of FAA regulations, and you assaulted a passenger. That passenger happens to be your CEO. You're facing serious charges unless you cooperate." Jessica stared blankly at the table, her voice faint. I ruined everything, didn't I?" Carla's silence was answer enough. Back in downtown Los Angeles, Harper Airways headquarters prepared for the media storm. A polished press release went live within 30 minutes. Official statement: Harper Airways. Harper Airways maintains the highest standards of passenger safety and dignity. Following an incident aboard Flight HA-101, the employee involved has been terminated effective immediately. Harper Airways is fully cooperating with federal authorities and is accelerating reforms to strengthen accountability, diversity training, and passenger protections within hours. The statement trended across X, TikTok, and YouTube. as Sophia's live stream surpassed 1 million views before the day was over. Across the country, passengers, employees, and media outlets debated the unfolding scandal, while travel forums lit up with new discussions on airline ethics and safety policies. But for Elena, this was never about the spectacle. Sitting quietly in the back of her SUV, she traced the faint scar forming on her lower lip and whispered to Patricia, "This is bigger than Jessica. This is about changing the culture." Patricia glanced at her tablet. "Then we start tonight," she replied. Elena nodded slowly. "We start tonight." And as the black SUV disappeared into the Los Angeles evening, the world had no idea that today's 10-minute incident at 35,000 feet was about to ignite the largest wave of reforms the airline industry had ever seen. The marble floors of the Los Angeles Federal Courthouse gleamed under the morning light, but the atmosphere inside was anything but calm. The entire country had been watching for weeks, and today's hearing would decide Jessica Langford's fate. Courtroom 6B was packed. Journalists lined the back row, cameras were clustered outside the door, and the public gallery overflowed with passengers, employees, and advocacy groups. At the front of the courtroom, Judge Eleanor Matthews adjusted her glasses, glancing over the mountain of case files stacked before her. Case number 24581, Harper Airways versus Jessica Langford, she announced, her steady voice silencing the room. On one side, Jessica sat stiffly at the defense table, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles were pale. A deep exhaustion carved into her face. Her public defender whispered something quietly, but Jessica barely reacted. She was drowning in the weight of what was to come. Across the aisle, Elena Harper sat poised, shoulders square, wearing a fitted navy suit. Beside her was Patricia Coleman, Harper Airways General Counsel, flanked by a team of attorneys from one of the country's top firms. To Elena's right sat FBI agent Carla Ruiz, prepared to testify on the federal implications of the incident. To the left, a row of first-class passengers, Alex Rivera, Sophia Grant, Marcus Lee, and Maria Alvarez, all ready to serve as witnesses. The case had captivated national attention not because of its sensational videos, though Sophia's live stream had surpassed 12 million views by now, but because of what it represented, a test of workplace accountability, passenger safety, and systemic bias in aviation. Judge Matthews began briskly. "We are here to determine liability for the incident aboard Harper Airways Flight HA-101, including charges of assault, defamation, and emotional distress." The prosecution opened first. Patricia Coleman rose, her voice steady, confident, and cutting through the courtroom with practiced precision. "Your Honor, what happened on Flight HA-101 wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a conscious act of aggression fueled by prejudice, negligence, and impairment," she began, gesturing to the evidence screens. "The defendant, Miss Langford, assaulted Dr. Elena Harper, CEO of Harper Airways, at 35,000 feet, putting passenger safety at risk, violating FAA regulations, and triggering a federal investigation. We will prove she acted recklessly, lied about security protocols, and caused emotional and reputational harm." On cue, the screen displayed cabin security footage showing the exact moment Jessica slapped Elena, synced perfectly with Sophia Grant's live stream angle. The sound of the slap echoed in the silent courtroom, and Jessica lowered her head as murmurs spread through the gallery. Patricia continued, "Beyond this act, Your Honor, the defendant falsely accused Dr. Harper of fraud, attempted to remove her from her assigned seat, and made inflammatory remarks about people like you, suggesting profiling based on status and appearance." Jessica's attorney rose, objecting weakly. "Your Honor, my client believed she was following protocol." But Judge Matthews leaned forward. "Miss Langford, I've reviewed the cabin footage. Following protocol does not involve physical assault or discriminatory remarks. The objection was overruled immediately. Then came the testimony. First to the stand was Air Marshal Derek Vance, recounting the events in measured detail. I witnessed Miss Langford repeatedly escalate the situation despite Dr. Harper's calm responses after the slap. I restrained her per federal guidelines for in-flight assaults. Next was Alex Rivera, the tech mogul whose video had garnered 5 million views independently. She humiliated a passenger in front of everyone without even checking the manifest, Alex stated firmly, his voice carrying weight. And then we found out that passenger owned the entire airline. It was beyond shocking, Sophia Grant testified after him, pulling up her live stream analytics as supporting evidence. This wasn't just a viral moment, she said, her voice soft but unwavering. Millions of people watched this in real time, including other Harper Airways employees. What message does it send if there are no consequences? Finally, Elena took the stand. The room quieted instantly as she raised her right hand, swore the oath, and sat gracefully in the witness chair. Her calm voice resonated through the courtroom with a deliberate cadence meant to be heard. Not rushed. Your Honor. I built Harper Airways from the ground up, she began, her gaze sweeping across the room. I started with nothing but a $2,000 settlement after a discrimination lawsuit and an idea to create an airline where dignity would never be optional. On Flight HA-101, that dignity was stripped away, not just from me, but from every passenger watching, every employee who believes in our mission, and every child who sees that video and wonders if respect depends on skin color or wealth. It doesn't. It shouldn't. And under my watch, it never will. Her words held the room hostage. Even Judge Matthews leaned back, listening intently. Patricia concluded Elena's testimony by introducing additional evidence. Jessica's 0.06% blood alcohol level during pre-flight testing, previously buried by Skylight Airlines management. This revelation sent shockwaves through the gallery and linked the scandal to Harper Airways' subsidiary within minutes. Headlines updated across the country. Alcohol test cover-up exposed. Harper's subsidiary under fire. Jessica's attorney tried to salvage the defense by painting a sympathetic picture, describing her troubled upbringing, failed marriage, and psychological stress, even calling Dr. Janet Reed, Jessica's therapist, to the stand. Dr. Reed testified about her patient's untreated anxiety, guilt over a past abortion, and escalating alcohol dependency. While the courtroom acknowledged Jessica's personal struggles, the prosecution reminded everyone that accountability could not be replaced with excuses. Patricia's rebuttal was devastating. Miss Langford had access to free therapy, addiction resources, and internal reporting systems. Harper Airways provided support. She chose not to seek it, and instead endangered passengers and assaulted her CEO. After 3 hours of testimony and cross-examinations, Judge Matthews delivered her ruling. Her gavel struck once, echoing across the silent room. In the matter of Harper Airways versus Jessica Langford, she began. This court finds the defendant liable for assault, defamation, and emotional distress. She continued. Miss Langford is hereby sentenced to 5 years of supervised probation, completion of a court-mandated rehabilitation program, and restitution to Dr. Harper in the amount of $10 million. Jessica's shoulders slumped forward, tears streaming silently as her attorney placed a hand on her back. The ruling sent ripples across the courtroom, reporters rushing outside to deliver breaking news updates, but Elena wasn't finished. As the press swarmed the courthouse steps, she stepped up to a row of microphones, her presence commanding instant silence. This was never just about me. She declared, it's about passengers who expect safety, employees who deserve accountability, and an industry that must evolve. Today marks the start of systemic change, not only for Harper Airways but for aviation as a whole. Behind her, Patricia handed reporters the announcement. Harper Airways would invest $80 million into immediate reforms, including mental health support, mandatory diversity and anti-bias training, and expanded passenger protection policies. Additionally, Skylight Airlines CEO Michael Langston had been forced to resign for concealing Jessica's prior complaints, with Dr. Maya Torres appointed as his successor to lead systemic change. By nightfall, the news dominated every major outlet. Hashtags like hashtag #JusticeAt35K, hashtag HarperActNow, and hashtag FlyWithDignity trended globally, and Sophia's video surpassed 20 million views, for millions of passengers watching. This wasn't just another viral scandal, it was a turning point in aviation history. But for Elena Harper, sitting quietly in her penthouse office overlooking Los Angeles that night, it was only the beginning. She stared at the finalized court order on her desk, her jaw set with quiet determination. "This isn't about punishment," she murmured to Patricia, who sat across from her, scrolling through media updates. "This is about prevention." Patricia nodded slowly. "Then we make it impossible for this to happen again." Elena leaned back in her chair, clasping her hands together. "Exactly," she said softly. "We don't just fix Harper Airways. We fix the industry." And as the city lights of Los Angeles glittered far below, Dr. Elena Harper prepared to launch reforms so sweeping they would shake the foundations of modern air travel forever. The courtroom ruling was only the beginning. Within 48 hours of the verdict, Harper Airways moved with unprecedented speed, unveiling what internal documents called Project Unity, an $80 million initiative designed to overhaul its entire corporate structure, workforce culture, and passenger protections for Dr. Elena Harper. This was no longer just about one viral incident. It was about reshaping an industry that had failed countless passengers long before Flight HA-101. In her corner office overlooking downtown Los Angeles, Elena sat with Patricia Coleman, her general counsel, Dr. Maya Torres, the newly appointed CEO of Skylight Airlines, and FBI agent Carla Ruiz, who had stayed on as a consultant for federal compliance. The four women pored over data, policies, and reform plans displayed on the massive 120-inch glass boardroom screen. 12,000 employees, Patricia said, scrolling through employee statistics, pilots, crew, corporate. Everyone will need to be retrained. No exceptions. Maya leaned forward, her voice steady but urgent. "I've already begun reviewing Skylight's failures. The systemic neglect goes deeper than Jessica Langford. Those passenger complaints didn't just get buried. They were deliberately suppressed to avoid investor backlash." Elena's jaw tightened as she replied, "That stops today." The first stage of Project Unity involved mandatory diversity, bias awareness, and empathy training for all Harper Airways and Skylight Airlines employees, from executives down to contracted staff. Sessions were led by independent experts, including former federal mediators and civil rights advocates, ensuring neutrality and transparency. Elena insisted that training wouldn't be performative, no slideshows and signatures. She said in a company-wide live stream viewed by over 9,000 employees worldwide, "This is about rewiring the culture, not checking a box. If you work under my name, dignity is no longer negotiable." The live stream chat flooded instantly with supportive comments from employees. But Elena knew trust couldn't be rebuilt through words alone. That's why she committed $25 million of the Reform Fund to a permanent Passenger Dignity Council, a committee composed of travelers, employees, and civil rights experts tasked with auditing Harper Airways quarterly and publishing findings publicly. Transparency would become non-negotiable. The second stage focused on mental health and addiction support, a lesson drawn directly from Jessica Langford's downward spiral. Harper Airways launched a confidential wellness program giving employees free, 24/7 access to licensed therapists, addiction specialists, and recovery retreats, all without management oversight. "You can't run safe flights if your people are quietly braking," Elena said during the announcement. "Healthy crews create safe skies." This policy immediately set Harper Airways apart in the industry, earning praise from aviation safety boards and employee unions alike. Dr. Maya Torres reinforced the initiative at Skylight Airlines, promising frontline workers full protection against retaliation for seeking help. Internal memos revealed that more than 1,200 employees enrolled in counseling within the first 30 days. An unprecedented surge that highlighted just how deeply hidden burnout and untreated stress had run across the airline sector. The third stage of reform introduced AI-driven anti-bias technology, developed in partnership with Apex Mobility's innovation lab. The system, called AeroShield, integrated into booking, boarding, and crew assignments, monitoring for patterns of discrimination in real time. If a passenger reported profiling, AeroShield flagged discrepancies instantly and automatically routed cases to a compliance officer outside the employee's direct chain of command. "We're removing the opportunity for bias to hide," Elena explained to reporters at a press conference streamed live to over 3 million viewers worldwide. "Technology will never replace accountability, but it can illuminate where humans fail to uphold it." These sweeping reforms did not come without resistance. Executives at competing airlines criticized Harper Airways publicly, accusing Elena of overreach and virtue signaling, claiming Project Unity would bankrupt operational efficiency. But passengers and advocacy groups fiercely defended Elena's decisions. On social media, hashtags like #FlyWithDignity, #HarperActNow, and #Unity in the air trended for weeks, fueled by Sophia Grant's viral updates and Alex Rivera's podcasts breaking down each reform milestone. Passenger loyalty spiked, and ticket sales rose 17% in a single quarter, contradicting industry analysts' dire predictions. "People want to fly where they feel respected," Alex Rivera said on his podcast, which now averaged 4 million weekly listeners after his Flight HA101 coverage. The reforms gained momentum at the federal level, too. Senator James Carter, long an advocate for anti-discrimination legislation, collaborated with Elena and the FAA to draft the Harper Act, a landmark bill requiring all U.S. airlines to adopt independent auditing, anti-bias monitoring tech, and enhanced passenger rights. When introduced in the Senate, the bill passed its first round of committee hearings unanimously, a rare bipartisan victory in a polarized Congress. At a nationally televised hearing, Elena delivered testimony that captured headlines overnight. Standing before lawmakers and cameras, she said, "One slap at 35,000 feet exposed decades of systemic failure. If this can happen to a black CEO, imagine who else it's happening to every day. People without cameras, without a platform, without the power to fight back. The Harper Act ensures no passenger will ever have to choose between silence and dignity again." Her words dominated primetime broadcasts, sparking widespread support from civil rights leaders, labor unions, and consumer protection advocates. Meanwhile, Jessica Langford faded from the spotlight, living under 5 years of probation and buried beneath a $10 million judgment she could never realistically repay. In a quiet turn of irony, Harper Airways offered to enroll her, and any terminated employee, in free rehabilitation and reintegration programs. Privately, Elena confided to Patricia that the decision wasn't about forgiveness, but about principle. "Accountability without compassion just creates more broken people," she said softly. Reports later surfaced that Jessica had voluntarily entered therapy with Dr. Janet Reed, her former counselor, and was beginning a path toward recovery out of the public eye. Inside Harper Airways headquarters, Elena promoted new leadership teams across Skylight Airlines and Harper corporate offices. Dr. Maya Torres became instrumental in rebuilding trust with frontline employees, holding monthly town halls streamed company-wide, where crew members anonymously shared stories of discrimination and burnout. These sessions informed further reforms, including raising minimum crew rest periods and restructuring promotion policies to prioritize performance and fairness by mid-year. The transformation was undeniable. Industry watchdog reports showed Harper Airways had achieved a 92% reduction in passenger discrimination complaints compared to the previous year. Independent audits confirmed compliance with Project Unity standards, and AeroShield's AI monitoring had flagged and resolved over 3,400 incidents in real time, preventing conflicts before they escalated. Harper Airways became the first U.S. airline to receive the National Aviation Equity Award, presented at the Federal Aviation Summit in Washington, D.C., where Elena delivered a keynote address before 3,000 industry leaders. "Progress isn't measured by promises," she said. "It's measured by policies that protect people when promises fail." The audience rose in a standing ovation, cementing her position as one of the most influential reformers in modern aviation history. But Elena's vision extended beyond her own company, using Harper Airways' influence. She spearheaded an industry-wide alliance of 8 major airlines, committing over $1.2 billion collectively toward safety, diversity, and passenger rights initiatives. Competitors who initially mocked Project Unity eventually adopted similar frameworks under mounting pressure from regulators and consumers alike. What began as a scandal born of humiliation had evolved into a revolution redefining aviation's core values. Late one evening, standing at the floor-to-ceiling windows of her penthouse office, Elena gazed over the illuminated sprawl of Los Angeles. Patricia entered quietly, holding a report. Passenger satisfaction hit. 98% this quarter, she said softly, handing it over. First time in company history. Elena smiled faintly, her reflection framed by the city lights. "Good," she whispered. "That means we're finally flying in the right direction." The ripples of Flight HA-101 had become tidal waves, reshaping policies, saving careers, and restoring dignity for millions of travelers worldwide. Yet Elena knew this wasn't the end. It was the foundation of something greater. For the first time, she felt the industry had a chance not just to recover, but to heal. 1 year later, the echo of Flight HA-101 still reverberated across the aviation industry, but the world it left behind was transformed. The National Aviation Safety Conference in Washington, D.C., had never seen anything like it. A grand hall filled with 3,000 of the world's most influential pilots, executives, regulators, and civil rights leaders, all gathered beneath a banner bearing bold words, "The Harper Act, 1 year of safer skies." At the center of the stage stood Dr. Elena Harper, now hailed internationally as the architect of aviation's most significant reforms in modern history. Dressed in a tailored ivory blazer and navy slacks, she adjusted the microphone, letting the quiet anticipation settle before she spoke. 1 year ago, she began, her voice steady but layered with emotion. 10 minutes at 35,000 feet revealed truths we could no longer ignore. That incident wasn't just about a slap. It was about systemic failures, broken protections, and unchecked bias hidden behind polished smiles. But from that chaos came change. And today, we are here to celebrate the passengers, the crews, the lawmakers, and the millions of voices who demanded better. Applause filled the vast hall, rising like a wave on massive screens behind her. Statistics illuminated the scale of transformation. Harper Airways passenger discrimination complaints down by 92%, industry-wide compliance with independent anti-bias auditing at 88%, and the successful implementation of AeroShield technology across all 27 major U.S. airlines. The Harper Act, co-authored by Elena and Senator James Carter, had passed Congress with overwhelming bipartisan support, mandating real-time bias detection, transparent passenger complaint systems, and federal funding for employee mental health programs. It reshaped the FAA's regulatory framework, creating a new passenger Bill of Rights that ensured dignity and accountability for everyone in the skies. In the front row, Senator James Carter sat nodding proudly, his signature policy achievement now impacting $1.2 trillion in federal aviation contracts. To his right sat Dr. Maya Torres, the once new CEO of Skylight Airlines, who had since rebuilt the subsidiary into an industry leader in diversity and safety. Skylight is stronger than ever, Maya whispered to Patricia Coleman. Seated beside her, Elena didn't just reform Harper Airways, she gave us a blueprint for humanity in aviation. Patricia smiled faintly, her leather portfolio resting on her lap. Already filled with proposals to extend Harper-style reforms into international alliances. For the millions watching the live stream across TikTok, YouTube, and X. Elena's speech marked a cultural turning point. Sophia Grant, whose live stream of Flight HA-101 now had over 34 million cumulative views, stood backstage broadcasting live commentary, her chat flooded with messages of admiration. Alex Rivera, the tech mogul who had defended Elena that day, sat among investors and policymakers, his company now partnered with Harper Airways to scale AeroShield globally. We're going international, Alex told Sophia between takes. Elena wants these protections in over 60 countries by the end of next year. But the transformation wasn't just measured in laws and technologies, it was deeply personal too. Among the many letters Elena had received since the incident, one stood out, a handwritten note from Jessica Langford. It arrived 3 months before the conference, sealed in a plain white envelope without a return address. Elena had kept it locked in her desk until this very morning. In careful, slanted handwriting, Jessica had written, "I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know I'm sober. I'm in therapy. And I finally understand what I couldn't see that day. Not just who you were, but who I was becoming. Thank you for holding me accountable when I couldn't hold myself accountable." Elena had said nothing publicly about the letter, respecting Jessica's privacy, but she carried it with her today as a silent reminder that change wasn't just systemic, it was human. As the conference continued, passenger advocates like Maria Alvarez and David Kim took the stage. Sharing stories of what the Harper Act had made possible, Maria recounted how her grandmother, once profiled and humiliated while traveling, now flew comfortably without fear. David described how AeroShield's early detection system intervened when a biased crew member attempted to reassign his mother's seat on an international flight, preventing discrimination in real time. These testimonies moved the audience to tears, their applause ringing through the chamber as Elena looked on quietly, her hand resting lightly against the faint scar on her lower lip, a permanent reminder of where this journey began, behind the scenes. Harper Airways reforms had inspired a ripple effect globally. The European Aviation Safety Agency, Japan's Civil Aeronautics Board, and Canada's Transport Authority had all adopted similar frameworks modeled on Project Unity. Within 12 months, over 84 international carriers implemented AeroShield monitoring, transparent grievance channels, and mental health mandates for crews. Aviation analysts called it the Harper Wave, a cultural shift redefining passenger rights and crew accountability worldwide. As the cameras turned back to Elena, she closed her speech with words that would dominate headlines by nightfall. We thought 10 minutes of chaos could destroy trust. Instead, it became the spark that rebuilt it. The skies belong to everyone, and under this new era, dignity will never again be optional. The hall erupted into a standing ovation that lasted nearly 2 minutes. That evening, Elena stood alone on the balcony of her penthouse, overlooking the glowing skyline of Washington, D.C. In her hand was Jessica's letter, folded neatly, worn from rereading. Patricia stepped out softly behind her, carrying a glass of sparkling water. "You did it," Patricia said simply, setting the glass on the railing. Elena shook her head, smiling faintly as she traced the embossed Harper Airways logo on the conference badge still pinned to her blazer. "No," she said quietly, gazing out at the endless horizon. "We did it. Every passenger, every employee, every voice that refused to be silent. This was never just my fight." She slipped Jessica's letter back into her pocket and turned toward Patricia with resolve. "Tomorrow, we start on international agreements. This doesn't end with us. Far below." The city hummed with life, and for the first time since Flight HA-101, Elena felt the turbulence settle, not because the skies were safer, but because the world had finally learned what it meant to protect dignity at 35,000 feet. One incident, 10 minutes, and a single choice had rewritten the future of aviation forever. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell.